So this is part one, taking off the passenger manifold, exhaust manifold for my 2000 Tundra. Works for other years of Tundra, definitely. To get some easy access to the area, which tends to be the common complaint, I removed a couple bracket bolts from the power steering fluid and was able to kind of wiggle that around back and forth as I was moving the breaker bar and things. And then I removed the whole air box as well, which was really easy. Just one clamp and a few bolts and pulls right out. Alright, so see how I can move this power steering reservoir out of the way. Now I'm going to point to these nuts that I have to take off the studs, which are, the studs are threaded into the aluminum block. The nuts are pretty much rusted on. In my case, I live in upstate New York, so it's a really salty environment on the roads. This manifold I already showed in another video was leaking. And the top bolts there are pretty easy to access. Now I'm looking through the wheel well. I took off the driver, passenger side wheel. You can see those top level bolts. You can get to some of them from through the wheel well here. And that's where I found the biggest leak there. So I'm going to put on, I tried several things. I tried breaker bars, impact drivers. I applied heat with MAP gas several times. I tried, of course, PB Blaster for days before I did this removal. And some of them came off easily, and a lot of them were major pain. This is one of the easier, that was one of the easier ones. I also used my standard little cheapo Dremel and put on these little cutoff discs, which break all the time because they're pretty weak little things. And I would cut the nuts off of the studs where I could get access to them on the ones that were really tough. So there's my MAP gas there. Used that several times. So the first top bolt on the right there, easy enough. I can get that from down in the wheel well, and I'm doing the same through the wheel well for the second one. Basically, this video is just going to show you the access points and where to get to, how you can get to all these nuts, because that's one of the hardest things and the thing that people always wonder, how do I get in there? So see, the breaker bar can actually fit when you have that airbox removed and the power steering reservoir moved over a little. And you can get access. So I'm on the third. See, there's one of the nuts I had to cut, kind of break some of that rust free and crack that off. Some of these studs would actually come out with the nut. So the nut would be so rusted on that the stud would just unscrew from the aluminum with it, and so I didn't have to remove the studs later. I'm going to be replacing all the studs and all the nuts, all new hardware. So from down below and using the breaker bar from up above, I was able to get all those top level fasteners. Now the ones underneath are the tricky ones. So this one I'm able to reach under the pipe there with the breaker bar that has a flexible head. And now I'm moving to the front one. I was kind of just doing them by whichever was easiest first. And looking through the wheel well, you can see where I'm getting access, but I'm actually cranking on it with my hand from up above. So we're getting done with all the easy ones here. And now on to a little bit harder ones. This one's a really tight fit. Excuse me while I go down here. There's a motor mount, and some people recommend just lift up the engine a little bit, take off that motor mount. I didn't really know enough about that or how to do it, and besides, this motor mount has a bunch of rusted bolts itself, so I don't know, how does that help really for me, for my situation, because I'm trying to get rusted bolts out. If I had to tack, 6 more rusted bolts, my chances of breaking one off or not being able to reach them are just the same as making this work. So the last and hardest thing was the second cylinder back from the front. You have to basically fit between the motor mount and the bottom of the pipe there, the manifold. And I tried all different types of sockets to find one that was the exact right length. If you didn't have such a rust situation, you could probably use a box end wrench and go in front of the pipe and down, and maybe put a pipe or something on the end of the wrench, but that wasn't working for me. I needed all 6 sides of a socket on there to torque these off, or break these off. So I was able to find a combination. See, I was able to just squeeze in this ratchet, but it turns out I didn't have enough leverage on that. So I had to move on to plan B, which was cutting this pipe off so I could get access to this nut there, which ended up being just the easiest thing to do after trying all types of different combinations of sockets and breaker bars. So moving down, I cut the pipe, and then I had to come down here and remove the 3 nuts or studs that went through down to the catalytic converter pipe, along with removing the oxygen sensor. And those 3 nuts and the oxygen sensor ended up being the easiest part of the job here. In fact, for those bolts that are on the catalytic converter pipe, I just sheared those off and they popped right out. So now I've cut this and I'm separating it. Kind of just pops right off, a little screwdriver action there, and I can pull out this whole manifold to be replaced or replaced by a header, which is what I'm going to do. So with it split like that, I was able to get it out from above. I don't know with the headers if I have to go down from below to put it in or can do it from above. We'll just have to see. I'm just taking a peek inside here to see what the condition of these are. A lot of soot build up from 20 years. Truck's only got 100,000 miles. But here's where I found the leak, the major leak in this thing. And you can see right there at the bend, it's not a weld, it's just a bend where the flange is. Really sharp bend. It rusted completely through. You can see the sunlight coming through, almost 180 degrees around. Look at that. So that could be easily fixed by with some welding, but because the flange faces were rusting out, and I just had leaks in several places, I just said I'm getting rid of this thing, getting a replacement part for it. So to get the studs out, once you get that whole pipe off, you have easy access to get everything else out. But to get the studs out, you have to use kind of a double nut arrangement to be able to get a grip on those. So just thread on 2 nuts and then unscrew the one closer to the engine, and that'll enable you to get these studs out. I was really worried about one of these breaking off inside the head and having to drill it out and all that. Real nervous about it, but it worked out, and they all unthreaded after, like I said, using the heat, using PB Blaster for days, and just keeping on working at it. So supposedly the driver's side is a much harder side to get access, so we'll have to see about that. I haven't actually attempted it yet, but you'll see it in the video when I finish it off. Got my one of those studs was really hard to get out. So just again using the heat, Try to heat that up, expand the metals and at different rates so they can kind of crack that bond and loosen it up enough. Now, I didn't get these red hot, so I was not absolutely sure if the heat actually did anything, but it seemed to help. So I thought this stud was kind of strange. It looked like it corroded, or it was cut in a really weird way where the diameter got smaller as it went towards the middle part there. I was worried about that one breaking.